Howdy everyone, welcome back to Sekien no Inganock. Let's not hit the fucking start button like a fucking idiot. Let's actually go load our game, how about that? Alright, let's continue. To think Randolph, of all people, would say that. The man's strangely sharp. Guy himself had planned to do that today. He certainly had been thinking about seeing him, and asking something only he might know. 6 years ago, he said, "If there's ever something you need to ask, come to me." That time is today. For some reason, I'm certain of it. He hesitated a little about whether to bring Kia. His reason for meeting him didn't include her. What he wanted to ask was about himself. He could clearly remember the last time they met 6 years ago. He who comprehended everything. Feline eyes. They were different than Attie's. However, he thought, that old man's eyes contained far more knowledge than Randolph's, and I can't truly understand his words. At least 6 years ago he couldn't, and that was why he now wandered around the city. What would he tell Guy? Would he say he was disappointed, since even now Guy was still confused about everything? When he sees that I'm still unable to give up, what will the old man say? I whisper softly, so that the girl walking beside me won't hear. It felt somewhat hollow to put it into words. If Mize or the children had heard him, they probably would have laughed. That power, that supreme heat which reduced a creature to ashes, that which suddenly appeared behind him in 1,000 colors. The shadow he'd gained in exchange for the illusion of the clown, that humanoid. However, that 1,000-colored shadow was surely a Kikai. The one and only, fairy tale born in the city. That which comes from behind one's back. That which brings about beautiful things for the people. The last fairy tale. A story whispered and ridiculed throughout Inganock. He's only seen it once. Something which was neither the phenomenon equation, or a crack engine. A third power which brought even creatures down to their knees. In the fantastic city of Inganock, a shadow was said to appear for a select few humans. A dream, a fairy tale for even fewer than the phenomenon equation. A transient dream born from the wishes of those who said humans still stood above all other organisms. That was what Guy believed it to be. A present. Those rumored to have owned Kikai were mostly runners and highness agents, persons who'd given their lives to subjugate the creatures. A fairy tale brought forth by illusions. Textbooks aimed at teaching girls the history of the past 10 years probably still had it mentioned in the corner as a fable. The only one of its kind in the city, something which might exist. Everyone knew of it, but most had never seen it. Why? He looked at Kia and realized that the girl was holding his hand. She was surprised, and tugging on his hand, it shook his shoulders slightly. She wouldn't let go. The girl was holding his hand tightly. While facing the way they were going, the girl spoke. It was an answer directed at Guy, and his question of why. Even though it was too quiet for him to hear, the words seemed to be directed at him, softly, softly.
知らないのキーヤは何も知らないでもギーすごかった強かった
すごくもないし強くもないさ
I didn't do anything. My friend died, crushed by flames. That's all there is to it. Yes, I couldn't do a single thing.
なぜ僕は老子と会おうとする。なぜ。
There was no point in mulling it over. Guy exhaled a white breath and shook his head. No single answer could clarify everything. Such things had broken apart 10 years ago. Just some peace of mind would be enough for him. And just as he thought that, Guy laid eyes on the same thing he'd met 6 years ago.
およおよおよおよおよおよおよおこれはこれはでかい、これはでかいぞ。何が釣れるか楽しみだ。なんだろう。誰が釣れるか楽しみだ。誰だろう。そこなこな。こっちへ来なさい。釣れる、釣れてしまうぞ。
ギー、おじいさんが大変、池へ落ちちゃう。
いや、彼は
助けなきゃ。
心優しい子。それ以上はダメだ。これは一人でやり遂げてこそ意味がある。釣れてしまうぞ。釣れる、釣られる、釣れる。これは見事なエンジン精霊が釣れてしまった。これは見事に丸々太ってうまそうな。
僕は食べられませんよ。ふしゅしゅふしゅ。
よくもしゃべるよ。かわいいエンジン精霊なる。これを食べるのは漁師が傷んでしまう。
硬いですよ。ふしゅふしゅふしゅ。
硬いのか、硬いのか。それはでは話してあげよう。さあ、レリース。
リリース？
そうだね。その通りだ。
I like this motherfucker. I like him.
かの機械は人に美しいものをもたらす。そういうふうにわし、それがどうかしたかね。
He's just like a cat. No, he actually is a cat. This wasn't what he'd expected, but it wasn't a complete surprise either. The old teacher was as calm as ever, gazing silently at Guy with unchanged, gentle eyes. An old, rational Isek. A man who'd lost all his fetters. It was said that even the upper-tier soldiers, objects of fear in the lower tiers, wouldn't lay a hand on him. He had no involvement with anything. Walking alone, fishing alone. He could live without involving anyone. He wasn't lacking in food, shelter, probably not even in life. Someone who probably had once had a life, but someone who'd now lost that. No one followed behind him. However, he had vestiges of life. He even understood the phenomenon equation in crack engines. He's seen many pearls of human wisdom, a mutant Isek with powerful observation abilities. That's why he's called, with a hint of fear and awe, the old teacher. He'd been fishing today again. He'd been fishing back then too, though it ended badly that time.
それにしても随分と懐かしい顔と可愛らしい顔だ。
お久しぶりです、老子いる。手土産を持っていないことをお許しください。
5年いや6年ぶりかな。ギー、あの時の君は池の中に落ちてしまったが。
猫だわ。ネギ、猫さんがいるの。でもアティとは全然違う。
可愛らしいお嬢さん、ごきげんよう。アティとは誰だ？
ごきげんよう、猫のおじいさま。私はキーヤと言います。アティはギーの奥さん。綺麗で強い人。
おお、正体を持ったか。結構なことだ。生きているね。
老子いる。今一度お尋ねします。
パルシオンと呼びたまえ。
Portion? Is that its name? Portion, the shadow's name. The shadow, brimming with power, brought up the flames, and reminded him of the revival that once filled the town 10 years ago. Portion. Is that its name? The smog-laden air froze. For a brief time I had that delusion. The old cat's eyes had opened. His enormous eyes sucked in light and released a glow, trapping Guy and Kia standing before him.
かつて失ったものは二度と戻ることはない。それはわしだけではなくて誰もが知っていてわかるね。なぜこの年があるか。壁から落ちた卵の狂人は戻らない。大変だ。中身が潰れてしまう。しかし落ちる前なら割れもしないものさ。
His eyes closed. The air began to move once more, together with the smog.
以上、ご清聴に感謝する。
老子、申し訳ない。言葉の意味が読み取れません。
It was like a poem, and yet also like the insane words of Randolph. Guy at least couldn't find any meaning in it. Was it an answer to his question? He didn't even know that.
わからなかったかな。わかったかな。
はい、ありがとう猫のおじい様。素敵な詩です。
優しい嘘をつける子は好きだ。いい子を伴ってきてくれたものだ、ギー。
そうか。
I certainly thought, so that's it. Now I understand. I see, so that's how it is. By the looks of things, his conviction today hadn't been wrong. Guy couldn't understand it at all, and yet... He looked at the girl smiling back at him. Somehow this kid understood something. For some reason, that face of hers made him think so. That made sense, so that was part of it as well. Kia, a mysterious girl. I don't even know who she is, or why she never leaves my side. The same goes for the old cat's words. Without even seeming to think about it, with just a smile.
ご老人、思い違いをしていました。あなたに会う必要があったのは、どうやら彼女のようです。僕ではない。
そうかね、ギー。
彼女のことを何か知らないでしょうか。もしくはどこかで見たことが。
さてさて、誰かのことを分かる者がどれだけいるかな。人は己も誰かをも理解できてはいないよ。
はい。いえ、そういうことではなくですね。彼女をどこかで見かけたりしなかったかとは。君の話をしてるんだ、キア。笑われるようなことをしたかな、僕は。
ごめんなさい。だって今のギ少し可愛かったから。
ね確かに可愛かった。
老子まで悪ふざけが過ぎます。僕は至って真面目です。キーヤ。
Tick tock, tick tock. Tick tock, tick tock. The sound of a clock, the sound of a clock. Is it time? Is it time? It continues to call. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The second hand moves. It stops, pointing right at 1 o'clock. It is a pocket watch of white silver. It is a pocket watch carried by one man. The golden spiral staircase, towering into the darkness. The man standing at the foot of it is none other than the silver watch's owner. with his master in the corner of his eye, continuing to climb the golden spiral staircase. The man continues to gaze at the watch, motionless. The man continues to gaze at the watch, and speaks. Like a chrome-built, machine-wound doll, in an inorganic voice.
我が主、私の計測が確かであれ、今。喝采せよ、喝采せよ。
He climbs, he climbs, he climbs. One master climbs the golden spiral staircase. He is the controller. He is the grand prince. He is the fool, the king of Inganock, the magician and scholar who discovered the phenomenon equation. He climbs the golden spiral staircase, one step at a time, even now, even now.
おお、素晴らしきかな。盲目の生贄はせず未だ都市にある。現在時刻を記録せよ。クロッククラッククローム。貴様の望んだその時だ。レムルレムルよ、震えるがよい。ギョイ。黄金螺旋階段の果てに我が夢、我が愛の形あり。
あなたの話だよ、大公爵。あなたはどこで何をするのかな。あなたはもうダメなのに何。
黙れ、黙れ、黙れ、黙れ。
静かに、静かに、そーっと忍び込む。サイレントビズは得意技だ。黒猫ってストリートネームはそもそもこれが得意だからついたのだもの。静かに、夜闇に紛れて音もなく侵入する。当然の顔してプロの技術を悪用するなんてこの年じゃザラだ。大したことじゃない。私がやったって誰も文句は言わない。やられたやつ以外は。だから忍び込む。両親の呵責っていうやつは少しはあるけれど、そのせいで死んだなんてやつは誰もいない。ツールで鍵を開ける。パチリとわずかな音。懐中時計の秒針程度。耳のいい種以外には聞こえやしない。大丈夫。扉を開く。大丈夫。平気平気。ここへの侵入は数えきれないほどだった。大丈夫。私はサイレントビズに慣れている。ほら、誰も気づかない。慣れた匂いのアパルトメント、ギーノ。今はあの子の匂いがわずかに混ざる。人の気配がある。2つ、あの子とギー。壁の陰からそーっと覗き込むと、ソファーに座って何かをしているあの子の姿が見えた。ダメ、ダメダメ、いけない。このまま気づかれずにギーのベッドへ。そうやって彼を脅かしてやろうと思った。だからわざわざ忍び込んだのに。あの子のことは気にしちゃダメ。悪い子じゃないのはわかる。悪意がない。分かってるんだ、そんなのは。そもそもおかしい。変だ。この黒猫が嫉妬とかありえないこと。あの小さな手に嫉妬したって意味がない。私の大きな手は歪んで、もう人間とは呼べないものになったからって。好きとか嫌いじゃない。そういうのは圧倒な人間のもの。関係ない。それなのに見てしまう。ソファーに座って嬉しそうに笑うあの子。その手の中に何かある。小さなもの、何か動いてるような。何あれ、おもちゃ。キーが誰かに何かを買ってあげた。ダメ、もうダメ、我慢できない。私はサイレントビズの意識を途端に失ってぴょこんと姿を現してしまっていた。ダメ。何それ、プレゼント。私にだって年1回しかくれないのに。あ、びっくりした。え、何アティいつ帰ったの。あはは、こんばんは。それあいつからのプレゼント。よかったね、キーヤ。ねえ。違うの。これを猫のおじいさんからいただいたの。ね、ほら可愛いでしょ。こんばんは、こんばんは。 僕ものじゃないんだけど。ねえ、ほらかわいい。そうだね、かわいいね。帰ったと言ってくれたのは嬉しいけど、でもダメ。ダメダメ。何してるのさ。なんて間の悪い猫なんだろう私は。尻滅裂だ。言葉になってない。困った。いよいよ困った。ダメ。
今のは驚いた。いつ来た？いや、さっきからいたのか。ずいぶん早いな。
何さ、困ってるのが丸分かり。そんなに迷惑？わざとらしく笑顔なんか作ってくれて。嘘。でも今確かに目にしたもの。キー今笑った。私はきっと今驚いた顔をしてる。でも彼も今同じような顔をしてる。間違いじゃない。確かに見た。彼は笑っていたもの。何年ぶりだろう、あなたが笑ったの。びっくりした。
笑った？僕が？
笑ったよ。今あなた笑っていたんだよ。困った感じだったけれど。でも笑っていたんだよ。
私は音を奏でる、今日も。それだけが私に残されたもの。失ってしまった中で一つだけ、奏でる音だけが証明してくれる私が私であったという事実だから、私は音を奏でる、今日も。エンジン式パイプオルガンの硬い鍵盤、今日も私は弾く。奏でる音は滑らかに、流れる旋律は澄んだ水の流れのように、そうあるようにと私は努める。けれども指が言うことを聞かない。最初の少しの時間なら今まで通りに、しばらくすると音はぎこちなく響く。私の指。奏でる音は滑らかさを失う。流れる旋律は濁った水の流れのように、私の指が意志から外れていく。どうしてと問いかけることはしない。それは上で嫌というほどしたもの。今さら全てはツタのせい。私の全身に絡みつくツタのせい。クラッキングの原理を応用して施された全身のノーブルタトゥー。こんなもの聞かない。変異から守ってくれるはずなのに、あらゆる都市の汚れから私を守ってくれると言っていたのに。嘘。すべてはまやかし。私の体にツタはまとわりついて、大丈夫かな。大丈夫でいてね、私の指。せめて指先だけは無事でいて。手首を不規則な強さで締め付けたり、不気味な優しさで撫でたりしてくる嫌なツタ、恐ろしいツタ。初めてツタの正体を知った時、私は狂いそうなくらいに泣いたっけ。もう狂っているのかも。今こうしているのも私の見ている夢で、 も拾われず、誰にもオルガンを用意してもらえずに、私はもう朽ち果てているのかも。いいえ、違うわ。この音だけは私の本当。私が私を確かめる術。本物のオルガンではなくてエンジン式オルガンだとしても、奏でる音だけは本物。そう、それだけは本物。と彼の姿がちらりと浮かぶ。私の嫌いな犬の姿をした男。彼をどうして私は思い出すの？そういえば今背後の彼に声をかけられたかも。知らないわ、そんなこと。音にだけ気持ちを傾けよう。私にはこれだけ。私に必要なのは音だけでいい。ああ、嘲笑うようにツタがうごめいている。思い出す。私の小さな手を引いて歩く彼のこと。あの時も今も。気持ちは音にだけ。私は彼を見ようとはしない。私は音を奏でる、今日も。それだけが落ちた私に残されたこと。
音が聞こえる、今日も。オルガンの音だけがこの子のすべて。失われてしまった中で一つだけ。きっとこの子は思っているのだろう。奏でる音だけが自身を証明するものと。だから私の声にあの子は答えない。エンジン式パイプオルガンを奏でるこの子は黙ったままで何も話してはくれない。硬い鍵盤を優美に奏でるその指、その手、その小さな手を引いて歩いたことを私は今も昨日のように覚えている。あの時も今も私はこの子を救えてはいない。救えてはいないのだ。神の真似をしても私は私のままだった。音が聞こえる、今日も。耳を澄ませること、それだけが今の私にできるすべてだ。
Is that one of Guy's patients, maybe? Interesting. Night. In the city of Inganock, there wasn't much of a difference between noon and night. The sky was dark, and the lower tiers were filled to the brim with people. The city's lower tiers, the third commercial ward, also known as Infinitely Crowded Street. It said that night never came to this place. The din of people coming and going never left, neither at noon nor at night. If people was going to sleep, someone else was probably going for a walk. There was never any rest on that street. The ruckus was by far its most distinctive characteristic. You could hear the crowd perfectly fine from anywhere, and it was even louder at night. Laughing voices stained with alcohol and drugs. Weekend or weekday, they could be heard every night. They even drowned out the performance of the roamers. Guy truly felt it. As he walked down the street and heard these voices, he truly felt that the people of the lower tiers were alive. There's never been any other time. Only at night do I ever feel truly that there's life in the city. Except when, yes, when I feel Attie's warmth. Guy focused on the warmth in his right hand, the girl's small white hand. A girl, Kia, was walking beside him. She had already changed out of her nurse uniform and returned it to her travel case. She was now wearing the same clothes as before. However, whenever they arrived at the patient's house, she would change into her formal pink outfit. There was no point to it, but old men brought down by tuberculosis and children suffering from high fevers, Their expression quickly changed whenever they saw her nurse-like outfit. Were they somehow relieved by it? Appearances made a strong impression on people, and girls' hurried changing wasn't for nothing.
しかし僕は白衣というわけにはいかないな。
It'd be different if he worked at a hospital like Hurley's, but for a traveling doctor who walked around the lower tiers, a clean white coat just wouldn't fit. A white coat. It must have been years since he'd last wore one. Then, some weak force tugged at his sleeve. The girl was telling Guy to stop.
ギー、あの人手を振ってるわ。
ああ、
はあ、やっとこっちを見てくれた。このまま通り過ぎてしまうのかと思ったわ。
気がつかなくてね。すまない。
焼けるわ、ドクター。偏屈さんが女連れで弱歩きなんて。
こんばんは。ごきげんよう。マダム。
アリサ。雑踏がや偏屈のアリサ。かわいいお嬢ちゃん。あなたのお名前は？
キーヤと言います。ごきげんよう、マダム。綺麗なお店ね。
あら、そう？嬉しいことを言う子ね。何せ私たちは花だもの。見た目で人を寄せつけておかないとね。なんなのその手。仲良くお手手つないで夜歩きの最中？
からかわないでほしい。夜のここは手放しでは歩かせられない。
あら、驚いた。
As she said that, the woman's snake belly made a strange noise. She seemed really surprised. A veteran opium den owner. Surprised? Was there really anything to be shocked by?
雰囲気が少し変わったかしら。ドクター、心なしか普段より人間みたい。まっとうな人間によく似た顔をしてるわ。
いいえ、マダム。ギーはどこも変わってないわ。
あらあら、なんてしっかりした子かしら。初対面の相手に物おじしないなんて。うちの若い子たちにも。ええ、あなたを見習わせてやりたいくらいだわ。お嬢ちゃん、お年はいくつ？もううちの靴の裏口から上がれる年？
アリサ・グレッグ、悪いね。からかわないでくれるかい？この子は一時だけ預かっているんだ。君の店へは置けないよ。
私も冗談くらいは言うのよ、ドクター。お嬢ちゃん、いつか遊びに来なさいね。
Elisa smiled as he said that. Her silent smile made the entire street seem livelier. There was never a night of rest on this street. Any sense of stillness here was unique. The lights were perpetually on, and countless sounds created a perpetual
ギ
ruckus.
ーがいいと言ったら遊びに来るわ。ねえ、ギー。こちらはどんなお店なの？
キーヤ、
はい。
A short distance from Crowded Street, 2 blocks away from the main road. A relatively silent, cooperative living street. Among the residential streets of the 7th tier, this place was somewhat peaceful. It had the perfect combination of high values and cheap rent. The cheap apartments, in distorted forms. One of those rooms. Guy had pulled on the girl's hand after she'd asked about the opium den, returning them back to his leased apartment. They returned to a place far too large for one person to live in.
ただいま。今夜は奥さんはいないのね。
キーヤ、
着替えてきます。何か夜食を作るから待っていてね。
コーヒーだけで構わないよ。
作ります。待っていないとダメよ、キー。
ああ。
はい。
Leaving a small smile behind, Key disappeared into a room on the 2nd floor. The apartment was small, but the 1st floor alone was enough for one person to live in. Guy didn't use the 2nd floor at all. There were 2 rooms on that floor. He treated both of them as guest rooms. He was probably right to do so. Kia certainly was a guest here. Guy hung his reconstructed coat on the wall. and sat down on the sofa, and heaved a sigh. He had no appetite for food or sleep, and yet he felt exhausted. But what about that girl, Kia? She should have been tired from walking. But she didn't act like it at all. She was showing Guy nothing but smiles. It wasn't that a smile was her default expression. Kia was somewhat meek when looking at scenery and buildings. Even so, she's always showing me her smile.
お待たせ。すぐに温かいもの作りますから。
歩き疲れただろう。もう休め。
ダメ。明日の準備もあるのだし、キエはゆっくりしていて。
She came down the stairs and went to the kitchen. She was probably starting on some packed lunches for breakfast and lunch tomorrow. And that nurse-like outfit of hers seemed to be her work clothes. And this scene had surprised him at first, but after seeing it over and over again, he'd gotten used to it. Kia did these things like they were perfectly natural. He stood in the kitchen with her back to him. Ah, Guy thought, and that reminds me of someone else. Someone from 10 years ago. Yes, just like the mother he once lost. The mother who'd always been thinking about the kitchen. The mother that liked cleanliness. His mother had died 10 years ago. So had his father. They'd been attacked by a creature, and the ward they'd lived in was sealed off even now.
どうしたのキエ。
いや、なんでもないよ。
なんでもなくない顔をしていたから。コーヒー入れたわ。即席だけど。
ありがとう。いただくよ。もう時間も遅い。準備はいいからお休み。
いや。
No. She said that and shook her head.
とはいえ、疲れているだろう。よし。明日は何か外で食べよう。少し懐にも余裕があるしね。
外食。
Her expression darkened a little. She'd been delighted for the Engine Tavern the other day, but now...
無限雑踏街の外れにね、揚げ魚のサンドイッチを作る屋台がある。あそこへ行こう。そう悪くない味なんだ。
でも食材。お弁当。
それは朝食か夕食にとっておきなさい。大丈夫。そんな顔をしないで。ちゃんと食べるから。
本当？
本当だと思う。
今、私聞いてしまったわ。ギーが私の作る料理全部食べるって。嘘じゃないわよね、ギー。本当なのよね。
全部全処するよ。
もう。
Kia pouted angrily. Still, she couldn't really be mad. Her pink eyes looked somewhat healthy. She did seem happy about being invited out to eat. And that was enough to make her rest for tonight. He wouldn't allow her small body to push itself too hard. Guy breathed a sigh of relief. Invited out to eat. How many years had it been since he'd last asked a woman out to eat? He felt like cracking a smile at the thought. He remembered Daddy's words. You smiled.
副交感神経が正常に機能している。変異したわけではなかった。僕が笑うことができる。さあ、今夜はもうお休み。明日も早い。寝巻きに着替えるんだよ。あと、毛布はきちんとかぶること。
He said that and stood up. When he did, something pulled at his sleeve slightly. A white hand had grabbed him.
なんだい？
Kia's grabbing my sleeve. Doesn't she want to sleep?
どうかしたのかな、キー。
おやすみなさい。
おやすみ。
おやすみなさい。
The hand wouldn't let go of his sleeve. What was... Before he could ask her anything was wrong, he had a sudden thought. His mother. The person she'd reminded him of earlier. His own mother. He couldn't remember her face anymore, but he knew who she was from back when he was a child. The sensation of that white hand. And one other thing. A voice spoke to him. To the person who once said he hated sleeping alone.
そうだな。
He sat back down on the sofa and hunched down, so that he was eye level with Kia's.
君はどうやら眠気を感じていないようだ。なら、おとぎ話を一つしよう。
おとぎ話？
Her eyes popped open. Was he treating her a little too much like a child?
都市行政についての話もいいんだろうが、あまり面白くはないだろうし。
ううん、いいえギ聞かせて。ちょっとね、すぐには眠れそうになかったから。ありがとうギ。絵本とかキーヤは好きよ。どんなおとぎ話？
ああ、
He had a feeling that she'd ended up worrying about him instead. Guy opened his mouth. He told her a tale that he'd heard from his mother. An old fairy tale they'd lost its meaning long ago. It was a story about people who knew the color green.
ほんの10年前まで木々の緑の美しさを本当に知る人は多くなかった。それは幻に近かった。大抵の緑色というのがくすんでいて、どこかに灰色の名残があった。どこへ行ってもなかった。インガノックのどこにも美しい緑。これはそんな昔の話だ。
From 10 years ago, a fairy tale no one tells anymore.
まだこの年に復活は訪れず、連合首都にも南大陸にも北欧帝国にだって旅することができた。10年よりも前にあったおとぎ話さ。ずっと昔、白い巨人に愛された緑の森で、緑の木々から生まれた人々がまず小さないさかいをした。そこに一人の
Morning, the next day. In a corner of infinitely crowded street, a boy rushed out from some back alley. He nearly crashed into Guy, but dodged at the last second. He was probably around the same age as Mise. Guy handed a few shillings to the shop owner and picked up the bag of sandwiches with his left hand. In his right was Kia's little white one.
いい匂い。おいしそうねギ。
冷めてからの方がうまいんだ。そうアティが言っていた。
あなたは？
うまいと思う。
He answered vaguely and headed towards the monorail station. Guy had no confidence when it came to taste. His cranial mutations prevented the sensation of his tongue. There was an ascending monorail station nearby. Guy aimed for that one. His destination was the upper-tier staircase. He was going to the first park's tier plate today. He decided to have lunch there before making his rounds.
これが初めてのデートになるのね。なんだか不思議。聞いたら奥さんがいるのに、どうしてそこへ連れて行ってくれるの？
ふと思い出してね。
Green trees.
夕べの話で思い出したんだ。もう随分と長いこと言っている。あそこはほんの瞬く間だけ憩いを与えてくれるすべての人々をやるね。僕はともかく君には休息が必要だ。
もう気を使わないでいいのに。でもギ、ありがとう。
The girl showed him a smile again, and people walking along the road glanced at her warmly. Something was different from the days before. It was as if that girl was melting something down.
どうしたんだい？今日は機嫌がいいね。
ええ、機嫌が良いの。
They had reached their destination in 30 minutes. They were going to the enormous upper-tier staircase that connected the lower tiers to the upper. The first upper-tier staircase park, a place of greenery. Most of the city's air was filled with engine smog. Only this area still remained clear. Water and greenery filled the surroundings. Thriving greenery. The revival 10 years ago had strengthened this place. Greenery was fertile, so it could resist the toxic smog. Water so pure that it too could resist the toxins. Everything here was unique. It was separated from all forms of filth in the city. And just seeing it put me at ease. The surrounding people say that aloud and sigh. The citizens were always covered by a gray sky, and never saw trees or leaves. This was a sole miracle that they had come to them in these 10 years. More beautiful than 10 years ago, clearer than 10 years ago. We can have lunch here in peace, and it'll let Kia have some rest. Would she show him that smile again? Yes, Guy thought she would, but he heard a mysterious voice, a voice he hadn't expected.
すごい
That's a voice of admiration.
綺麗すごいわこんなにたくさんの綺麗な緑色がいっぱいすごいこんなの初めてこれ全部が木々で草でねえギー池のようなものに満ちてるのは何お水こんなに澄んで水道水より不思議な景色ね不思議でもとっても素敵
The words coming out of those small lips, they warmed my heart. There was no sign of it being an act. Kia was simply in awe with the scenery that had entered her vision. A voice of admiration, a sigh. Her gaze sparkled as it moved between the greenery, the water, and Guy. She turned her attention to the cluster of peculiar plant buildings in which the Shelobs lived. What are those? She asked.
あれは植物で作った家だよ。シェロブたちが住んでいる。
シェロブ
そう、シェロブ。変異した彼らの習性は昆虫に近いんだ。
そうなのよくわからないけどわかったわすごいわここにあるものすべて連れてきてくれてありがとうキーとっても嬉しいプレゼントだわ
She's never seen these things. This place? It was the sole place of rest for people living in the lower tiers. Many of the engine factory workers came here during the weekends to relax. For the past 10 years in this cruel city, the 1st through the 6th park plates had been an important existence to the citizens' peace of mind. How could she not know that? Kia, a mysterious girl. If anyone else said that, I'd think they were lying. But when you say it, I believe you.
これまでに僕の歩いた層の多くをキーヤは知らなかった。それは感じていたことだ。安全な区画で育てられていた。文字通り箱入り娘。
Or maybe she was a pitiful victim of despair and desire. Those things gave birth to dark tides in the lower city tiers. The boys and girls confided by Salem. In this city, it's impossible to say that someone wasn't brought up in such an environment. Or maybe... No, she couldn't be an upper-tier aristocrat. He returned his gaze to the girl. At some point, Kia had moved to the water's edge and was playing with some little creature.
はいこっちを手手に持ってそうそう上手
Is she fucking playing Cat's Cradle? What?
あなたはお手手がたくさんあるのねすごいわキーヤは2つしかないのにわざわざうんええそうなの編み物だってできてしまうのすごいわキーヤは編み物ね 料理は得意なの？今度持ってきてあげる。またギーとここまでお散歩しに来るわ。ほら、あっちから見ている人、手を振って。
She's waving her hand, together with a small Shelob child.
ギー、この子とっても元気で可愛いの。この子も人間の子ね。
あ、そうだよ。それはシロブの子だろ。
Kia spoke as if she'd never seen one before, and yet she was smiling. Normally, any human from the lower tiers would be afraid the first time they saw a Shelob. After all, the Shelobs looked strange. In both mind and body, they were the furthest from human out of all the fantastic mutants. Complete fantastic mutants. They'd been continually assaulted and boycotted until the city law was renewed a year ago.
ワンワンそう、楽しい？これはね、私の得意なあやとりなの。西京のずっと東にある国の遊び。あのね、これが銅で、これ
The first time, huh? Guy thought for a bit. He nodded a little, but decided not to wave back. A while after that, since he'd already climbed up there, Guy traveled to relatively high parts of the lower tier today. He used his phenomenon equation to heal patients living in their own homes, with many rooms and even furniture. There were high standards of living relative to where he came from. The illnesses contracted by the bourgeoisie were weak compared to most in the lower tiers. He didn't even have accurate statistics of any sort. That was just his impression, along with the number of severe patients he actually encountered as he walked. They paid well, but there weren't that many. Around evening, Guy ran out of work. The people living in the upper half of the lower tiers were just too wealthy and affluent. Their citizen rights, private property limits, and food rations were all different from those in the impoverished lower-tier citizens below the 7th floor. Despite living in the same city, they were blessed far more than most lower-tier citizens, although nowhere near as much as the aristocrats living on the upper tier. A certain kind of elite. They were chosen simply by being born above the 6th tier. Monsters, creatures, mutants, and other powerful beings were here too. Everyone knew the fear and despair of the last 10 years. Nevertheless, it was infrequent for people in these tiers to request healing from an anonymous traveling doctor. They chose doctors from the same tier, licensed doctors from public or private hospitals. As long as their condition wasn't too severe, they could worry about things like reputation. They were different from people who weren't able to choose at all. They had money and reputation. Their lives were filled with plenty of choices. There was no work to be done there. That was why Guy usually walked through the lower half of the lower tiers. Evening. I'm going home earlier than usual. Once more, to the first upper-tier staircase park.
ねえキー、もしもの話、もしもの話なの？もしも今日お仕事が早く終わるようなら、もう一度あそこへ連れて行ってほしいの。上層階段公園。
That was when Guy decided that any further traveling would be pointless. Kia whispered her request modestly, moving her gaze back and forth several times between the tips of Guy's shoes and the collar of his cloak. 2 weeks since they'd met. This was rare. Guy had rarely seen Kia make a request like that. And that's why I listened to Kia's imploring words.
綺麗。これは夕方の空は赤いのね。緑がこんなに赤く、まるで炎のよう。
While silently whispering that, Kia's gaze moved across the red colors surrounding her. Scenery tinged with the evening sun lay out before her eyes. It was the most beautiful thing in the city. The city's sole fairy tale. A story that brought forth beautiful things, the fabled Kikai, whispering from behind. The first time Guy had heard about the Kikai fairy tale, this was what he imagined. A red world, a sky overflowing with the brightest of flames. It must be because of our altitude. The evening sky looks nothing like this anywhere else. The upper tier staircase parks. Guy was reborn here a long time ago. On that day, on that time, 10 years ago, Guy was near here when it happened. A higher tier plate than this, the third upper tier staircase park. A soundless world brought about by the roars of collapse. He'd been within the infinite rubble.
思い出す。
He couldn't remember that time very well. His memories of 10 years ago were already fragmented. The third park. There was a hospital there.
この音、何かしら。とても綺麗で、どこか悲しげなオルガンの音。
She spoke of a sound. Guy cleared his ears. A sound. A melody. Within the red of the setting sun filled the surroundings. He certainly could hear a melody. A number of notes put together to create a melody. Was it from an engine-type organ? The wind carried it towards Guy and Kia at the water's edge. However, they couldn't feel its beauty. The sound that reached them was too faint.
聞こえない。なんて儚い。今にも消えそうに。綺麗なのに寂しくて悲しげな音。いいわ。
No.
こんなにもここは美しいのに。この音がとても似合ってる。そんなの悲しいわ。
Ah, that's true. If the melody was one of sadness, it would suit the red beauty well. In the sliver of time before evening, in the world where the brightest flame showed itself for such a short time, it was very sad. It could only be thought of as ephemeral. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound of a clock, the sound of a clock. Is it time? Is it time? It continues to call. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The second hand moves. It stops, pointing right at 0 o'clock. It is a pocket watch of white silver. It is a pocket watch carried by one man. The golden spiral staircase, towering into the darkness. The man standing at the foot of it is none other than the silver watch's owner. With his master in the corner of his eye, continuing to climb the golden spiral staircase, the man continues to gaze at the watch, motionless. The man continues to gaze at the watch, and speaks. Like a chrome-built, machine-wound doll in an inorganic voice.
時間だ。ブラッドツリーとの第一次接触を確認。盲目の生贄が2つ目の供物を追う。人の思いは旋律によるだろう。主、あなたの望んだ時が来た。さあ、演奏会の始まりだ。 我らの生贄はどの程度持つか。せめていいや
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Alright folks, I think that's a good place to end things right here. So we're gonna go ahead and do just that. Son of a bitch, I hit a button and it did things. The previous line said, the next day, just so we're aware. Alright everyone, so that's it for this episode of Sekien no Inganock. So shit's getting interesting. Yeah. Is the prince and that silver watch guy, like, are they bad guys? Are they trying to, like, well, they said to sacrifice, and they said second. So does that mean, like, they're trying to make Gi use the power to, like, do something? Or, like, what? That's weird, right? Right? And Kia gets more mysterious, never seeing trees or never hearing other things and whatnot, and that's interesting. Yes. It's like she just randomly appeared in the city or something like that. You know, from like the outside world, or not even the outside world, because she would have seen trees in the outside world, right? I don't know. It's interesting, but this is where we're going to end things. So we'll pick up here in the next video. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. So bye-bye.